Welcome to the Biz Gone Social podcast. We help entrepreneurs navigate how to get known, get customers, and get the edge over their competition. Here is your host, Lorraine Duncan.
So here we are on the Biz Gone Social podcast, and I am so glad to be here. And my promise to you, as always, is I want to give you a little bit of verbal caffeine that's going to energize your business and help you stay social. After all, don't you want to be the business that everyone's talking about? I know I do. And welcome, Evans. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Lorraine. I look forward to serving your audience and grateful for the opportunity.
So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about what you do and who you serve?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I'm a business consultant, and my main point of emphasis is helping coaches, consultants, experts, business owners who have podcasts to grow their audience, to get more leads, get more customers and more clients from that podcast. So I have a method that I've created over time through my own business and then helped others do it as well. It's called the podcast ATM business model. And I love to think of the podcast sort of as the engine that drives the vehicle being your business as the owner. And I know so many people I speak with, they just are like, I'm fed up with all the other different things. I absolutely love my podcast. I want it to be the main focus of my business, but I don't know how to connect it to my business. So simplest terms, that's what we do for you, is connect it to your business and get you more clients, more leads, and then grow that audience as well.
That's awesome. What are some tips or strategies around that you would offer to podcasting entrepreneurs who are out there to help them monetize their podcast?
Yeah, I think first of all, I would say that a lot of times when people hear the word monetize your podcast, they often think, well, sponsorships, advertising, those type of things. And I'm like, no, as an entrepreneur, let's sponsor you. This is your podcast. Let's sponsor yourself and your own business. So the little quick backstory of how this came to be, I was actually the partner in a podcast called Real Estate Rockstars with Pat Hyben. We built this podcast up from next to nothing. It had no business model, anything like that. Pat came to me, he was like, needed my help. So I ended up developing this system that I share now that we installed in this podcast. It grew it to 150,000 monthly listeners, all organically, within the first 12 months. And then we developed a lead gen system that got 78.6% opt-ins from listeners to leads. So almost 8 out of 10 people. And then from there, we had a system in place that we were able to sell real estate sales training, coaching, and a recurring revenue model on the back end. So we built basically what looks like a podcast sales funnel. So what I would share with people, the first step to do is to have that end goal, that vision. What is it that you really want your business to look like on the back end, right? What is it that you're doing? Are you doing coaching? Are you doing consulting? Are you just selling courses? Whatever that looks like, and go ahead and decide, how do I want my business to look? How do I want my life to look? And what would be the best version of that on the back end? And then start building backwards. So for me, when it comes to monetizing, I will tell you this, here's a funny thing. I'll throw something out there, Lorraine, because it's probably something that most people don't expect. It's like, well, if you're creating a business that you're monetizing with, what I tell people is stop selling in your podcast, right? Just go on and stop selling and focus on the leads first. Because that was truly where our tipping point was. When we were struggling to make sales, struggling to get any traction. It was almost feast or famine, that hamster wheel of getting a few sales, then getting nothing, then getting a few more, and then not having many the next month. So we stepped back and looked at what we were doing, and we decided that, and we got feedback from our audience too, right? Well, we don't like you pitching in the show or interrupting us to have a commercial for your own product in the show. they were like, we love it because you just give a lot of value, right? So we started focusing once again on the listener first, giving them a ton of value, actionable value. We used to call it the meat and potatoes, stuff you could actually take, tactics, and put them into your business. But instead of trying to sell them something, just get them on our list first. And we treated that list, instead of like a transaction, it was more of a relationship. So that's what I would share with people, is start thinking about it, whether you're a guest or a host. Start thinking about, how can I grow my list? Focus on that list first, and then treat that list like gold. Treat it like a relationship with a real human being. Don't be, and I'm guilty of this in the past, so I'll just go on to share that, but don't be the one that gets the email address, treats it like a transactional approach where that person doesn't hear from you again until like 2 days before Black Friday, and you email them like 50 times with your new discount for the Black Friday sale, right? Right. Give them a lot of value. And we actually developed a system that we did in our lead gen that helped us build relationships to where they came to us and said, I'm ready to buy your thing. And then when they bought again and again and again and again.
Yeah, I love that. I love the whole relationship part. I think that's where so many people miss out. They really forget that there is a human on the other side, and treat someone like they're a real person. And I love that. Let's talk a little bit more about your unique podcast sales funnel method. What is a must-have? If we were creating our own funnel, what is a must-have in this funnel?
Well, I'll go back to what we called our irresistible opt-in framework. That was step one, right? Was having that. But what I like to share with people too is, and this is something that I think is a must-have as well. And this will give your listeners, I believe, a lot of faith in how they can succeed as podcasting entrepreneurs. Because while most people are out trying to attract clients, attract leads, you, through your content, the way we teach you to how to present your content in the podcast, you can actually create your dream clients through the content. And to me, that was a huge sort of shift as well in our business, where no longer are we just worried about attracting the right people, because we would attract the people to come listen to the podcast. But then once they're listening, if you give them the type of content that's transformational, that shifts beliefs, that helps change their identity, that moves them closer to being the person who can be successful with your programs, with your consulting, with your coaching, whatever that looks like, then you're actually creating your dream clients. So that's a major step in the funnel, is like to stop. You don't have to worry about pummeling them with information, because information's everywhere. And they can take the information you give them and still be unsuccessful if they do not have the belief that they can do the thing they wish to do. And that's where it really comes into play, to go in and focus on, how can we create content that actually shifts beliefs, changes identities, helps people be who they need to be to do the thing they wish to do. And you provide the thing that they wish to do, the vehicle to get them that result. And when you do that, you actually create someone who's like, okay, now I'm ready to opt into your thing, to be on your list. Now I'm ready to buy your thing. And I believe that you are the right person for me, and that you have a system that will serve me. And even more importantly, I believe I can be successful with it. And as entrepreneurs and coaches and consultants, we all want our clients to be successful. So to me, that's where you have an unfair advantage as a podcast host, because you can shift those beliefs and you have a captive audience for doing that. So I'd say that's like a really big pillar in the sales funnel that many people miss, because they're more focused on what's happening over here in the conversion process and forgetting about the people need to believe in themselves, and they will only be successful depending on what identity they have. If their identity is someone who doesn't believe they can be successful with your thing, then they're never going to be successful with it.
Absolutely. I noticed, like, the people out there, you can't see this, but Evans is wearing a t-shirt that says Servepreneur. And tell me a little bit about, you have something called the Servepreneur Blueprint. What is that all about?
Well, and thanks for asking. This sort of came from, I guess it was funny. I was in a networking call today and we were talking about branding, and this ties together, I promise. But to me, everybody kept talking about the things you do as far as like social media, emails, like podcasts, videos, whatever. But I was thinking in my mind, don't forget about reputation branding, because other people give you a reputation that can brand you depending on how you show up as the entrepreneur, as the business owner. And for me, where Servepreneur came from, because I spent so much time focusing on how can I give value to others through the process, from people that I wanted to be connected with, that were much more successful to me. I would always show up in a way like, hey, I know somebody that could help that person with what they're doing, so I'm going to connect them, right? Or I would write down, and I started writing this down, and it really connects to Servepreneur, where I write it down still to this day. Every day I write down, I am being one who always creates positive outcomes and opportunities for myself and others. And so I started writing that intention down, and over time I started noticing how things were happening. So to me, the Servepreneur sort of branding was actually given to me in a way where I was known, and people would always say, hey, you got to meet this guy because he's really good. So then I had people connecting me to other people, and that's really how I grew my business in many ways. So from there, just over time, the Servepreneur Blueprint developed, and it's something that I'm working on. I'm actually building a community of movement called the Servepreneur Movement, that to me, Servepreneur is a way of being. And I sort of take what most people, if you think about it, you always hear people say, you have to be, do, have. Well, with the Servepreneur Blueprint, it's be, do, give, and grow are the 4 pillars of the Servepreneur Blueprint. Because I believe if you be who you need to be, and then do the thing that you were brought here to do, and then you give, which creates an abundance cycle, then everybody grows and wins together. So that's really, it's more of a principles of how I do business versus an actual business model, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And, I'm always a big believer that if you come out of a place of service and you do give, you get back 100-fold. And it may not be monetarily, it could be in so many other ways, in a warm introduction, in a gesture. And that's what I love about life in general, is like, if you really do come from a place of service, really you do get back. And I just remember when I joined my first BNI group, and I don't do BNI anymore. I'm in other networking groups now, but I remember, it had this like philosophy, giver's gain, that if you come out of a place of giving, that you'll get. Is it okay? Not really. I give because I want to give. I don't expect to get anything back in return, but I think that's where a lot of people mess that whole thing up. If I've done like a lot of missions work, for instance, and it's like, that's all you do is give. Did I get anything in return? No. I got experience. I got to meet amazing people in a third world country that, you wouldn't meet here in the United States. So it's kind of cool. I want to get real here. This is the part of the show where we get a little real here. What do you enjoy most?
Let's do it.
What do you enjoy most about being in business for yourself?
Oh, I'd have to say independence and freedom, freedom of time, right? I've been it's funny. I was about to use the word belligerent, when I look back on it, since I was in my, high school and older, I was pretty belligerent about the fact that I didn't like being on other people's schedules, right? That I didn't like being on other people's agendas. So I think over time, what developed is sort of rebellious belligerentness developed into something that now I really enjoy it because it's the freedom part, but then it's also the freedom to serve and to help others sort of step into what they were meant to do, right? To get their message and mission out into the world. So yeah, it's funny. It's because I think I was sort of told that I was like, this rebellious, belligerent kid when you're younger. It's like, why can't you just go get a job and work for somebody else, right? Why can't you? You're like, I don't know why I can't. I just don't know. But then as you get older and you sort of get into it, you realize that this is what you were born to be, who you were born to be, right? And it develops over time. So, and it's for me, if, like you said, people can't really see unless they see the video, but that's my family over my shoulder back there. So for me, it's always been about how can I be a better dad, better partner, and have the freedom to do that. But just to let everybody know, it's not, as you know too, Lorraine, it's not just because we want freedom doesn't mean that we always get it. We have to be careful with the way we plan our business and plan our lives. And I have a friend and someone who wrote a book. His name's Richie Norton, wrote this book called Anti-Time Management. I would highly recommend your listeners pick that up if they're looking to be more intentional with creating that freedom that we all craved as entrepreneurs. And we then find ourselves sort of having to climb up that wall, scrape our way back up to get to that freedom. It's a great book that'll help sort of shift your mindset and give you some actionable tips. It's got a plan in it, a roadmap, which I love. So it sort of goes with this part of the segment, right? Where it gives you the steps to sort of take back control of your life. And I love that book. So I would highly recommend it.
Good. Absolutely. You know what? You just went ahead, and I was going to ask you what your favorite book was. You already told me. So you must have been a mind reader.
I've got another one if you want me to share it.
Oh, you only get one book. But no, here's the funny. I just remember, like when I became an entrepreneur and I was no longer working a job, my parents would always be asking, so when are you going to get a job? Like, we spent all this money on college. Like, when are you going to get a job? It just doesn't, right? It kind of doesn't work out, But it's like, I love rebellious, but I'm so rebellious sometimes that like I rebel against my own schedule, which is pretty bad.
Right.
But, everybody looks, a lot of my friends think I'm really cool because like I have a business and, they see the glamour of it. Oh, she makes money. She doesn't have to work for anybody, and so on and so on. But we both know that there are so many challenges when it comes to owning your own business. What would you say is your number one challenge in today's world that you have overcame or you're still struggling with?
I think it goes back to, the same only child, sort of belligerent, rebellious. I'm going to do everything myself. So I think it's getting out. And I've had teams before. I've had multiple businesses where I had teams and grew them. I'm back now to where I think it's relinquishing some of the control and trusting others, right? Finding the right people, asking for help. And to me, that's really like something that I've worked on a lot and I think I've gotten a lot better at it, but I still know I have lots of ways to go. But I would share that with anybody listening is that, there's another, I'm going to break the rule. There's another great book out there called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I would say go get that because it's a great shift. And we need to, what I've discovered and what I think is great about podcasting, you might be able to piggyback on this, Lorraine, is that it's very collaborative. And if you come from a place of abundance and collaboration versus competition and scarcity, you start to see the opportunities for partnering with others, creating JV opportunities, creating partnerships, finding the people that will be able to jump in and help where maybe you need a little bit of help, whether it's, if you're the idea person and you need an operator, somebody to get that idea across the finish line, whatever that looks like. So to me, it's definitely that. It's been growing into that being, I've always been sort of collaborative, but I haven't been willing to ask for the help when I needed it. And I think that's where it's really grown and sort of opened up. And once you start doing that, you'd be amazed how many people are willing to help you, right? They're probably sitting there going, why didn't they ask for help? I could have done that. I could have helped them with that. I know somebody that would be perfect for that. So to me, that's definitely it.
Absolutely agree with that. I mean, to be honest with you, I learn every day on my podcast, things that I didn't know, things are mentioned that I check up later on, and it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I know about this? Because here's the thing, as entrepreneurs, and you know this, we don't know everything. And we always, if we're in a place of always learning and growing, we will be the number one entrepreneur. I really do believe that. So one piece of advice that could be universal, it could be for someone who's starting out, it could be for someone who is thinking of starting a business, or it could be for a seasoned business owner. What would be one piece of advice that would help them move forward today?
I think it's one would be to really don't forget that you have a unique ability, and to not be distracted in thinking that you fall into the comparison trap. Because I know it happens no matter what level you're on. Beginning, seasoned, really successful. If you fall into the comparison trap, you're often pulled out of your own unique ability, what you were brought here to do and to shine and to share and to serve others with. And to me, that would be it, is just to remember, no matter how tough it gets, that you have something in you, that it's yours. And as long as you focus on your unique ability, you'll never have competition. And that's what I tell a lot of people when they're coming to me and they're like, I'd love to start a podcast, or I'm going to give up my podcast because there's too many. But I'm like, but there's no you except for you, and you will pull the right people towards you. So to me, I think that's a good one. It's like whenever you're struggling and feeling, you're seeing like, oh, that person looks like they're doing better than me. We're all on our own path, and we all have our own ability and our own unique talents and unique, the greatest thing we were brought here to serve people with. So as long as you focus on that, and you'll be fine no matter what you're doing, right? As long as you focus on that, and then making sure that you give that to the right people that need that are out there waiting to hear from you.
I love that. It reminds me of the Dr. Seuss book. You are newer than you.
That's 3 books now. We've broken the rules
boy,
here.
So, well, sometimes I don't even ask people for the favorite book. I kind of add that every once in a while because sometimes it comes out right in the podcast. Because here's something that I am learning, and you may be able to affirm this a little bit. When I talk to like amazing people every day, and what I realize is most of those amazing people have read a lot of books and have learned a lot from reading a lot of books. And it's so true. It's like I'm reading one right now that's amazing called The Pumpkin Plan. And if you get one little nugget from each book, that you read, you don't have to like study it and implement every single thing. But if you get one little piece of nugget and you implement it, you're going to be better than you were the day before. So that's just my philosophy. I
love that.
A little birdie told me that you have a little gift for my listeners today. Tell them how they can get a hold of you if you resonated with them, or if maybe they want to start a podcast and they need some help, or they want to monetize their podcast, need some help, or, just give some information, and I'll make sure that it goes in the show notes and everything.
Okay, absolutely. Well, to me, I would say probably the best place to start is with the gift that I got. I'll just share that with them because that'll actually bring them into their world, but it'll bring them into my world, but it'll bring them into my world by me giving them some value first, which I always like to do. But I thought about your audience, and they're not all going to be podcasters, but many of them are going to be that get on podcasts as guests. I'm hoping. So I brought something that will serve both of those sides of the equation, right? So we talked a little bit earlier about how if I was to do anything, I would focus on leads. As a podcast host, as a podcast guest, getting leads, because that's the place to start and to build a relationship with those leads. So what I did was I've got something that we've created. It's a unique way. We talked about this earlier, how we got 78.6% opt-in and built relationships. So I created something called the Listeners to Leads Blueprint, which I'm going to give to your listeners if they want it. And it is how you can, it's a proven framework to turn on a flood of leads and sales from your podcast or podcast guest appearances. And it's really easy to get if they pull out their phones and they text the word leads, LEADS, to 55444. That's leads to 55444. Or if they'd rather just email me at info@infiniteimpactmethod.com. That's info@infiniteimpactmethod.com. I will get that to them. So, and I promise if you do the text thing, I'm not going to blast you with a bunch of texts. You just text, you'll get this directly sent into your phone so you can start accessing it right away and using it. And I will not put you on any kind of texting email list. I promise. That's my promise to all those out there. But I would definitely highly recommend getting that. It's a unique way of getting leads and taking them through a flow that moves them to a client really quickly in an authentic sort of human relationship building type of way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being a guest on my show. And until next week, everyone, this is the Biz Gone Social Podcast, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Biz Gone Social Podcast. Find us on Instagram at Biz Gone Social for extra tips. Check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, stay social.